Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. We're so excited to have you here with us for a really important conversation around families in the workplace. So, more specifically, today we're going to be speaking with Lucy from UTA around how we can better support our families at work. Our conversation with Lucy is going to provide a ton of great insight into how we can think about building more accessible, thoughtful, inclusive benefits programs to support all paths to parenthood. But before we go ahead and dive into this great conversation, let's start off with some introductions. To kick things off, I am Kathleen Davin. I head up people operations and total rewards here at Maven Clinic. And for those of you who might not already be familiar with Maven, we are the world's largest virtual clinic for women's and family health. We provide customized support for all paths to parenthood, content that is driven by clinicians, and a global platform with 24/7 access to over 35 different specialties covering the full family health spectrum. I feel incredibly lucky to have experienced Maven as not just a user, but also as a benefits decision maker. And I think benefits leaders like us are faced with a constantly changing environment of how we can best support our teams. So grateful to be at a company that's so aligned with building more inclusive and progressive and easy to use programs for families. And I am even more grateful to be joined by Lucy today, who is such a great practical expert and has seen firsthand at UTA the impact of implementing really innovative family benefits programs. So Lucy, I will pass it over to you. Could you introduce yourself to the audience? Whoop, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you for having me, Kathleen. Hello, I'm Lucy Avsharian. I am the Director of Benefits at UTA, which is United Talent Agency. UTA is one of the largest talent agencies in the world. We represent actors, writers, producers, directors, athletes, artists, and musicians. And what I've worked at UTA for 5.5 years now, and I've been in corporate benefits for over 13. And I'm just a really big advocate for family support benefits, as you will see through this webinar. And I've also had the privilege to use Maven firsthand as a mom who was struggling with infertility and used IVF to have my twin babies who turned 3 yesterday.
Awesome. So great to hear. Always so meaningful to have the personal experience with utilizing family benefits programs. And we're so excited for all of your expertise today. And hopefully at the end of this session, you'll all have some really practical strategies of how you can build more inclusive family benefits programs to help attract and retain talent and also reduce healthcare costs for your teams and your organization. But before we go ahead and dig into this really great conversation, want to take a moment to just zoom out and talk through at a macro level, what challenges are families facing today? So first off, some really staggering stats here. We're seeing more limited access to care. Only half of US counties have access to an OBGYN. 90% of US counties are lacking abortion care. And BIPOC folks are less likely to seek out fertility or prenatal care because of these access challenges. We also see a lot of lack of equity in the healthcare system. There is limited representation in mental health providers and the doctors folks are looking for. And for a lot of folks in the LGBTQIA community, many are finding that insurance providers have limited coverage for their own family building journeys. And so they're hitting a wall in access as well. And so as benefits leaders, we are also facing a lot. We're seeing rising costs that are unfortunately not necessarily tied to better outcomes. And many of us have experienced this firsthand, seeing increases in our health insurance renewals. Our employees are also feeling the pain of this. They're seeing their out-of-pocket costs continue to climb. And so there's a lot here. The benefits landscape has become really complex, really challenging. I'm sure we all feel it. And it has become more and more difficult to reach our employees in the right ways, to help them understand the complexities of their benefits plans. And this is a lot. It can feel really disheartening, really overwhelming. But what I find really optimistic for us as benefits leaders is that we're in a unique position to address so many of these challenges head on for our employees. And that's why I'm so excited to have Lucy here to share with us how she's set up some really meaningful family benefits programs at UTA and talk about the impact that they've had. So, Lucy, I know you mentioned briefly you're a user of Maven. What brings you here today? Why is this such an important conversation?
Well, I think that family support benefits should be a core offering, right? If right now people are looking for flexibility, work-life balance, and I think as an organization, you can't say that you're even valuing these things if you're not valuing family support benefits and taking care of the thing that matters the most to them outside of their job. And so for me, it's such an important, experiencing it firsthand, but also seeing my employees reach out and share with me the experiences they had, the value that we brought to them. Um, and so yeah, I'm just a huge advocate. And so I'm happy to be here and talk through it and have other organizations know the strategies I've used to make it so successful.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you here with us to share all of that knowledge. And you've been at UTA at 5 years. I would imagine you have seen the full brunt of challenges and changes that many of us have experienced over the past couple years in particular. And so
Mhm.
in your view, how have HR priorities changed? How has our role changed?
Well, I think HR is now more and more being seen as a crucial function to the growth of the business, to the bottom line, the value that it brings to an organization. I think that's come to the forefront with the pandemic and employees now looking at different things beyond what does this job pay and where is it located and what will I be doing is what are the benefits? What do they value? What's their philosophy? What's the culture? And all these things are so much more important now, if not as important as the pay and the job title and everything else. So it's a completely different playing field, and I think we've experienced that and we've felt it firsthand as we're getting more and more, invited to these conversations early on.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. It has totally changed the game, and it's nice that HR has a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And so, as you kind of think about building out programs, identifying the types of support that your team in particular is looking for, how do you stay in touch with all of that? What are some strategies that you use to understand the needs of your employee base?
Well, we do the original things, we'll do an engagement survey. I do think there's a lot of value in that. But what I do personally is any opportunity I get where I'm having a meeting with an employee, maybe it's related to some other benefit they have, I take the moment to say, by the way, is there any benefit you would like to see at UTA? Is there anything that you'd like to see us do more of or less of that you don't use? And I just use that moment. And I think, not that I'm going to do it tomorrow, but I'd love to just know. And one, they feel so appreciated and valued, but that is more valuable to me to know what is it, because everyone's demographics is going to be different. So you can't take anything off the shelf. You can't take surveys. Nothing's going to be more valuable than your employee telling you firsthand what it is that they want to see in their benefits package. And another thing I'll do is, I'll try to get them outside of the work environment. So I'll take them to an external lunch, or if I'm having an outside event with an employee, I'll bring it up there, where they just feel more open and more honest outside of the work walls to share exactly what it is that they'd like to see.
I love that so much. I think benefits are so personal for so many
Mhm.
employees, and being able to just take them out of the workplace, make them feel like you have their back and are such a trusted advisor and really want to listen to what they're looking for in their programs, I'm sure gets you a ton of really amazing insights. So that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I let them know I can't promise anything, right? But I want to at least know, I want to hear you and, make sure that you feel like your information's valued.
Absolutely. And I love how you said also might want to know what isn't working for them. Like what are the
Yeah.
benefits that you're not using, and making sure that you're really investing in the right
Yeah.
places and focusing on the right things, I think is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I want to shift a little bit to the retention conversation because this is really top of mind in such a tight talent market. Maven actually recently conducted a survey that found that 70% of companies found higher rates of attrition among working parents in the last 2 years. And so that is really staggering. But from what I understand, you haven't necessarily experienced that at UTA. Why do you think that is? Why has UTA had such success retaining parents?
Yeah, I think 5 years ago we made a commitment. We made a commitment that we were going to go really big on family support benefits, and we were going to make sure women return from leave of absence. We wanted to attract more minorities, we wanted to attract more women and diverse backgrounds. And in order to do that, we had to make sure there was nothing standing in the way between them doing the best work of their careers here and having other priorities outside of work. Um, and so beyond, a paid leave, which was one of the things we did, we implemented everything else that can be, impacting them needing to, come back to work. For example, Maven has the work support, return to work support, right? To make sure they have that support they need to return. And so we bundled it with everything end-to-end solution to make sure that they feel completely supported. And I think word also traveled. So people who join are people who value and want these benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other piece that's really important, I would imagine this is also helping you stand out in a really tight labor market. Can you talk about that? How are you finding that this is helping you attract the right candidates to your
Yeah, and it's extremely tight labor market, especially in a talent agency. We were the big four, and now we're the big three because ICM got purchased by CAA. So right now it's WME, CAA, and UTA. So right, you have the three big players if you're an agent. And so word travels, right? UTA has the brand now that's big on family support benefits. If you want to have children, if you want to have support for your children, you've created this culture, this value of a company that says, and these employees talk to each other, right? They're hopping from one organization to another. And it's, how do you like it at UTA? And so they say, oh, the family support benefits are incredible, right? And so that is attraction. And it's been a retention too, where people have said, I'm here because you guys have been so supportive and incredible during my journey. And so, I think being such a tight labor market already, and then having it be even tighter, you have to do these things. And of course, our competitors copied us, which I think is amazing, right? Like I still am a advocate that family support needs to be core benefits, and I think it's a compliment, and I would want to see that, and it just gets all of us to then do more and provide more in this area.
That's so amazing. It's amazing to feel the impact as a benefits leader when you not just implement great solutions for your team, but you also see it trickle out into
Yes.
your competitors. I mean, it makes you understand the importance of just how critical this is and how core it is, like you said.
Mhm.
And so I'm curious, want to shift a little bit into, we talked a little bit about challenges that we're facing in the talent market and in recruiting. Want to shift to some specific strategies of what UTA is doing, how you're approaching this. So can you just walk us through what do you cover? How do you think about your approach to family benefits?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's meeting you where you are in your journey. So we offer $30,000 of reimbursement if for IVF, IUI, surrogacy, adoption, or maybe you want to focus on your career right now. You do egg freezing and you focus on that later. So whatever you want to do, we reimburse 30,000. And then on top of that, our paid parental leave is 16 weeks for the primary caregiver. So whoever that is in your family, and then 6 weeks for the secondary caregiver. And I've just loved seeing so many of our fathers use it. And the reasons have usually been, my wife doesn't get such a generous leave. And so once she has to go back in 12 weeks, I'll step in and do the remaining, 4 I have or 6 I have. It's just been so amazing to see that support, that partnership, a true parenting partnership there. Um, we offer backup childcare, backup elder care. Um, We offer new moms travel support. So if you're a new mom and your child is under 1 and you have to travel for work, we would pay for all expenses for the baby to accompany you, as well as a nanny or your spouse or anybody to come with the baby, the shipment of the breast milk, any meals and lodging that has to do with your travel. We provide a $500 gift card when the new baby's born, travel reimbursement for reproductive services. Um, gosh, there's, I always try to remember.
It's so much.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just such a robust
Yeah, and
program.
of course Maven. So the thing about Maven though is that's one of our global benefits. So it's great that we can offer it to our London office, and it's inclusive because it'll have in the beginning the content asks you, are you the supporting spouse? Are you adopting? Are you a surrogate? So the content then is tailored to what your journey is, and I love sharing that with the employee because then they feel seen. And then we have all the whole suite. So are you trying to get pregnant? You use fertility. Are you trying to freeze your eggs? You use our egg freezing program. Are you pregnant, or are you doing parenting and pediatrics? So, from the moment you're trying to get pregnant to the time your baby's 10 years old, Maven's offering you that concierge care.
That's so great. And I think that sounds like a theme of what you have really aimed to build with this program is like meeting people where they're at, like you said, and making sure that you're not taking this one size fits all approach to, oh, here's the set it and forget it benefits package.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you've also seen those needs change over the past couple of years. Have you added anything new? How are you thinking about evolving your programs to make sure that you're matching this wide variety of needs that
Yeah.
experiencing?
Yeah. Well, one of them was, I had a lot of employees, when the Maven maternity would end, they would ask if it could be extended. And, we didn't have anything, right? We had backup childcare. So I would say, oh, well, if you need backup childcare, but they wanted that Maven care to continue, right? And so when your child turns 1, you don't have that care anymore. And a lot of people, I mean, there was, I've had this for 5 years. At one point, it was when your baby was 6 months, and people were still using the sleep coaches and the lactation consultants, and they weren't ready to let go. And so we recently launched, Maven came out with parenting and pediatrics. So I selfishly was also excited to be able to continue using the support. We also added recently the tuition, the reimbursement for travel or reproductive services. And then we enhanced, we were originally reimbursing 10,000 for family support reimbursement, and now we bumped it up to 30, realizing that, people are going to need more than 10.
That's amazing. It makes you realize just how much of a pulse you have on your employee population, and it's just incredible to be able to constantly adapt your programs
Yeah.
to that. Are you seeing any sort of, we're hearing a lot at Maven that from many of our partners that there are some underserved healthcare needs. So things like fertility, menopause even, and that these are becoming top priorities for benefits leaders to look at in 2022 and beyond. So I'm curious, why do you think that is? Are you experiencing that? And how do you approach all of these new areas that are kind of underserved and
Yeah. I personally have not experienced the fertility because we offer so much support in that area. But I was at the annual healthcare conference in San Diego in March from the conference board, and menopause was one that came up. And I just thought, I've never thought of that. Like, there's a group of people that I completely did not think of. And somebody had reached out to me saying that they came out with a solution and an app for it. And so, she shared the demo with me, and I loved it. And then my monthly meeting with my Maven rep told me that Maven's coming out with it too. So for me, I wanted to be Maven for the whole package, because one of the things, as a benefit leader is getting your employees to absorb all this information, right? You're coming at them with so many different products. So if you could keep a brand the same, right? Like, oh, you used Maven for your fertility journey, your parenting journey, and so now it's your menopause journey. It's easier to kind of share that information, share the communications when it's all under kind of one offering.
100%. Yeah, I think it's so helpful to have that one-stop shop, and especially when
Mhm.
you have a trusted vendor that you work with,
Yeah.
really nice to be able to offer that full spectrum.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's trusted, right? Because this was a person who actually she came up with it, which is amazing and phenomenal, and it was great. But one is I already know what I'm going to expect with Maven, right? There's a trusting partnership there for 5 years, and implementation requires nothing because it's already all done behind the scenes. So.
Totally. That's so great to hear. How do you think about measuring success? Like, how do you look at stats or criteria to make sure you're saying, yep, this is a successful benefit. This is working for our team.
So I look at the regular stuff that many of you might look at, which is are people returning from leave of absence? Are the fathers using the parental leave for 16 weeks as primary caregiver? Um, there's what does the utilization look like on Maven when I have my quarterly reporting? So I get all that, but I think when it comes to something like a family support benefit, I also look at what is this doing for our brand? What is this doing to the value of our company? What does it speak to? Is it speaking to our culture, our DE&I initiatives, right? Because I'll have somebody reach out and say, my kids are teenagers and I'm never going to use any of our family support benefits, but I just want to say it's so incredible that we offer these benefits to the people who need it. And so there's value there. And that person's not using the benefit, but they just want to be part of this organization that values that, as someone who values their family and puts that as a priority. So I think you can't look at that with just numbers. It depends on what you're looking at, right? And so for this one, I'm looking at the data, but I'm also looking at overall, what is this doing for the company?
Yeah, I think the employer brand component is so important and something we all think about. I think about one of the questions we ask our team on our engagement survey is, are you proud to work here? And that for me is like, if you have a great benefits program, if you're supporting families in the right ways, even if you have an employee who's not utilizing that particular program, they hopefully feel that link and feel connected to,
That
yep, we're
question.
doing right by our employees.
Yeah, I really like that question. Yeah,
It's a good one. It's
yeah,
very insightful to be able to say, like, how do you represent yourself in the world and
yeah. And
amongst
that
your
will
team?
speak to whether or not they're going to stay, is if they're proud to be with the organization that they work for.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in looking for various partners and thinking through the selection process, how do you go about that? Are there any qualities or signs that you're looking for when bringing on a new partner or vendor?
Um, I'll speak to my network of benefit leaders, right? Which one have you used? Any pain points, any recommendations? I'll speak to my brokers, get their advice. I'll ask the vendor to give me a referral that I can speak to. Um, and then I'll look at, engagement, utilization. I mean, those things are important. And then what will the service be? And that's my kind of picky one for me personally, is I want to know that I'm going to build a relationship with this vendor. They're going to be available to me. I'm not calling an 800 number. And I have this support system and they have a brand that I want to be connected to.
Got it. Awesome. And in thinking through, like, let's say, okay, great, you found a partner, you found a vendor that you really want to work with. I'm sure the burning question in many of our audience's mind is, how do you actually get buy-in on that? I know a lot of us are faced with tight budgets or executives or finance teams who might be skeptical of the actual benefits. So when you find something that you want to move forward, how do you actually build the case to add something
Yeah.
like this?
I think this goes back to the answer I said about you have to explain that this isn't only about numbers ROI, it's about the brand that this brings to your company, the value. So if your mission statement says something like, we care about your holistic well-being, or we value work-life balance, or you can't say any of those things as like a benefit philosophy or a mission statement and then not offer any family support benefits, right? It's contradicting yourself. And so that's, I think, where you focus, and you have to be passionate about it and genuinely believe it, that this is going to impact your employees in a way where they're going to feel supported, and putting all the metrics aside, and is saying, what do we want to be as a company? What do we want to represent? It speaks to the culture, the brand. Do we care about DE&I? And this is how we translate that. And then of course there's, the pricing model and everything like that. I mean, personally, there's like Maven where you're paying for the people who use it is a great pitch because then it's based on utilization and they love hearing that. But really it has to be a bigger picture pitch. It has to be more strategic, out of the box, and why over encompassing why are we doing this.
Yeah, I love that approach of just looking at it through the lens of your values and your mission and understanding what you want to stand for as an employer, and then really taking a holistic look at all of your benefits programs and saying, does this align with that? I think that's so refreshing to
Mhm.
be able to look really holistically at that and make sure you're meeting all of those values. So that's
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Well, I want to shift a little bit to your relationship with Maven. I know you've been working with Maven for 5 years. How would you say the relationship has evolved there?
You know, they're a trusting partner. So I know year over year, I'm not going to have any problems. They're not going to underdeliver, overpromise. I'm not going to have employees share feedback of having a bad experience, right? We get the quarterly reports. Employees are rating the doctors on 4.5 and above out of 5. And so I'm looking at these little things and going, I don't have to I have a trusting relationship here that if they come out with a new product, I want to be a part of it. Um, and and yeah, it's been a great relationship. And it's also nice when your relationship manager is the same year over year over year. It's kind of refreshing because it also speaks to them as a company and their retention.
Totally. Yeah, I think building the trusted partner, part of that is having someone who has your back and has an understanding of what you are uniquely facing as a business. Was there anything in particular that initially helped you decide to work with Maven or helped you kind of choose them as the family benefits vendor?
It was a referral. So for me, it was a benefit network. I was interested in doing something in this space. And then when that was referred to me, I liked the pricing model, and I actually didn't end up looking at any other vendor, which is not typically like me. But I just I went with it. I thought it was going to be an easy pitch, so I went straight on.
Totally. And I think definitely not necessarily the way we always look at vendors as benefits professionals.
Mhm.
Um, but I think you mentioned this earlier. One of the factors is like Maven had a more holistic approach and kind of met that end to end that you're trying to meet in building your programs. Was there anything you felt like was missing in your employee population or any needs that you were trying to solve when you were
Yeah,
looking for a vendor here?
yeah. I think and I kind of had an idea what the other vendors did too, right? And I knew what I was looking for. And one of the things was making sure people come back from leave. And so, Maven was offering this return to work support. And also having the lactation consultants and the sleep coaches and all these things that helped people through the journey to be able to have that good experience as a good pregnancy. Um, and it was to attract a certain type of people. I mean, we were a traditional Hollywood agency with a certain demographic, and we wanted to change that. And in order to change that, we needed to offer something that was, are you adopting? Are you a surrogate? Are you a same-sex couple? And it's global. So our London office, and at that time we had Canada, they were able to use it. And it was inclusive, and it was just, meeting them where they are in the journey.
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure you heard from your team about a lot of different needs, and so helpful to be able to address a lot of that. And you are a Maven user yourself. You have twins. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with the platform and how it's helped you?
Yes. So if you've gone through fertility, I mean, and I went through it for 5 years, it's a emotional, physical, financial roller coaster. Definitely the hardest thing I personally went through, and I wanted to feel supported. And At the time that I was going through it at my last company, we were 60,000 employees. And I remember asking why we don't offer any family support benefits. And the answer was it doesn't impact enough people. And I remember just feeling really hurt by that because the people that you would impact would make a huge difference, And then I remember Googling things like, how do I find a doctor? And what does IVF cost? And so just to be able to then know that I'm like helping people not go through what I went through. And then thankfully, I was able to use Maven Maternity when I was here because I was already here and I had the program implemented. Um, you know, I waited 5 years and now everything's a big deal. It's a high risk pregnancy. And if something happens at 11 p.m., I was able to get on a phone with a doctor and talk through it versus waiting for my doctor to call me back, during business hours, whenever that may be. And so it just felt really good. Even not using it, just mentally knowing it was available to me. And if something happened to me, I can get on the phone with the doctor and talk to them right away, or even get a second opinion about what my doctor said was just mentally so supportive. And I felt amazing doing it. And then when I had the babies, I think I used every sleep coach that was available. Because they were twins of going through two separate things. And that was another really cool thing is that you're talking to someone where you can explain your entire situation to versus looking at stuff off the shelf or on Google, which are not totally connected to exactly what you're going through. And, so that was really cool. And yeah, so for me, it just obviously holds a dear place in my heart.
Yeah, that's so amazing that it provided all of that support for you. And I'm sure it's also really helpful to be able to experience your benefits firsthand when you talk about them with employees. Like that's always one of the first things I look at is how can I use this? Like, have I experienced using this benefit or this platform to make sure that you actually can understand and talk about it with your teams? Do you think your approach to communicating around benefits has changed based on some of those experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I think after I used Maven, I thought to myself, I'm going to be able to speak to this so much better because I can actually give, actual experiences and moments and examples of when I needed them and when it was so useful to me. And that's what people want to hear, right? They want to know, you're throwing all this information at them and when you give a real life example and they know someone who's used it and how they used it, it gives a whole different meaningful feeling to it. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think reminds me of what you said earlier is like actually sitting down, having those conversations to get feedback with people. And I think being able to put yourself in their shoes is so meaningful and really just helps you keep a pulse on what's going on. And so do you think your experience using Maven is reflective of how your employees have benefited from it as well?
yeah, I hear the feedback, right? I had an agent tell me, to be able to close my office door and talk to a lactation consultant instead of going to the doctor's office, making the appointment, waiting in the waiting room, driving there, and spending all those hours. She said, how incredible that I can lock my door, have my quick session, and go back about my day. And and not having to pay a copay, not worrying about what that bill's going to look like. And that's all mentally nice, right? Mentally calming. The person gets to go and focus back on what their job was, what their day looked like, and supporting them to do both.
That's amazing. Yeah. Always nice to have those wins, especially when we're dealing with so many challenges and so many new things popping up as in the benefits space every day. It's always nice to just hear that qualitative feedback of how has this actually impacted folks on your team. So that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I see a bunch of questions coming through. We're going to dig into your Q&A. So to our audience members, please continue to drop questions in the Q&A feature on the bottom right of your screen. And we're just going to take a look and pull some up now. So we have a question here around who you're offering these benefits for. How do you think about carving this out for different populations? Are you offering it to all employees, just full-timers? Um, how do you think about offering it to the right folks at UTA?
Well, I think we don't actually have many part-time employees, maybe a handful, but I do think if you do have part-time employees, you want to offer these to them as well. We offer to everybody except consultants, temps, but we offer it to the entire organization. And anytime we can make anything global, it's no question a global benefit.
Awesome. And we talked a little bit around benefits communications, but do you have any go-to strategies for advertising your benefits internally and sharing them out with people?
Yeah, I think one of the things I do is something like a Maven or our family support benefits, I use our one-on-one time when we're going through their leave of absence. So when someone wants to go on leave of absence, me or someone on my team has the one-on-one call with them. At that moment, me personally, I'm sharing my experience with Maven, how I used it, what I used it for, and my team hasn't used it. I have four, and neither of them have used it because of where they are in their journey. But they also speak to how I've used it or have another employees used it. But whatever it is, they have to pitch it at that moment and explain to the employee, and then follow the conversation with a link, an email link to Maven, because that's when you have their most undivided attention. And they're getting ready to go on this leave of absence. If we find out about the maternity sooner, of course we share it at that time too. And then we'll do the traditional things. We have monthly communications that go out. So Maven does these webinars, and we'll send those out and just say, this is in partnership with UTA, in partnership with Maven, that this is being hosted. And many times they're not even sure who put it together, but at the end of the day, they got the content that they needed. And, like the last one was Fertility 101. And, we had a lot of people join. And so it's nice to know that I don't even have to do anything except send the communication out. And so I think it's just strategically figuring out what works for your company, right? In my last job, it was engineering and construction. That wasn't going to work. So we would put it in like their pay stubs, a little flyer, informational, whatever is going to be right for your organization. And for us, we found the most effective is the leave of absence calls.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and we'll do the orientations and the open enrollments and all the other good stuff that you have to do to get people to read.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I think it is like this multi-pronged approach where you have to reach as many people as possible, but then you also have to customize communications and make sure that you're reaching people at the right moments, like when they're going out on leave and when these things are most relevant for them. So I think just like we talked about taking this custom approach to benefits, you also have to do that with your communications, which is, I think, really important.
Yeah, and like if somebody's saying, "Oh, how does the family support work?" I'm interested in freezing my eggs. So I'll share that, and then I'll also make sure I'm using that opportunity to say, and also make sure you sign up for Maven's egg freezing concierge support, right? To make sure you're always partnering the two together, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking a look, we had a couple questions around like specifics of your leave program and family benefits programs. One was around return to work support. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How does that look like for folks returning from leave? How does that work?
So actually, it's through Maven. They have a return to work coaches. And what we've created is we've created a one-pager for the manager, and we've created a one-pager for the employee. The one-pager for the employee is a lot of Maven content and access to Maven and talking about the Maven coach and how they can help you and how they're trained coaches to help you get back to the office. And the one-pager for the manager is helping you come back. So the things that they should be doing as a good leader to prepare you for a return to office. An example of that would be if you're open to allowing them to come back slow with a slower transition, or working from home a few days before they come back, whatever you're open to, that's something that maybe you guys should discuss. Like, so it's kind of talking points on things they can do with you, touch basing with you, and connecting with you. But on the employee side, it's really the Maven support that we're offering them.
That's great. And I hope that that has also impacted your ability to retain folks coming back from leave, because I know you mentioned that was a big goal of rolling out a program like this. And so
Yeah,
hopefully
and the
you've seen that.
5 years that I've been here, the 5.5 years, Kathleen, that I've been here, I had one person not return from leave.
Wow.
So I know it's working for us. I know whatever we've set is working.
That is incredible. How many employees is
Well,
UTA?
1,700.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's huge. That is just such a testament to all the work you've done and
right.
everything you've put in place for families. That's amazing. Um, we had a question here around that reimbursement for things like IVF and fertility expenses. Is that a lifetime max or a per instance?
So it's a lifetime maximum, and the way it works is we reimburse 10,000 maximum per year, 30,000 lifetime maximum. And if you, let's say, incurred 20,000 at once, we would pay 10,000 and then you would receive the next 10,000 at the anniversary of when you submitted that claim. And that was part of a retention tool to make sure, we're not paying 30,000 all at once, and then also making sure the employee stays. So, if it's 30,000, then you're going to get 10, 10, 10. But there's an annual cap of 10 and a lifetime cap of 30.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure that is such a helpful retention tool. And when I look at those programs, like reimbursement programs through Maven Wallet and things like that, I always think about like these are the things that make people stay in their
Mhm.
job and stay and build families and continue their careers here. So that's such a great perk to offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Um, there was a question around how you're thinking about evolving your current parental leave, if at all. Wondering if you would think about evolving it to be 16 weeks for all parents and not having a distinction for primary versus secondary. How did you think about constructing your current leave program, and do you think about eventually evolving it?
Um, I think it works. I think, it's the honor system too, right? I mean, we're going based off what you are saying. So, and I found that it's really hard to get someone that's not the birthing mother to want to take 16 weeks of primary care leave. So I don't have to be concerned with them, you know, falsely taking advantage of the leave. It's worked out really well. And, I had an employee last week who said, I'm here because of the family support benefits. My wife is a entrepreneur. She's self-employed, and so this 16-week parental leave, the fact that I can be primary, and because we have no family around, and so the fact that we can do this together and make this work because I have this job is everything to me. And so those are the kind of stories where it's just like so heartfelt, um and it works. So I don't think we have any intentions if it's not broken. I think it works for same-sex couples, it works for the surrogate, the adoption. It's not connected to the birthing mother or the birthing parent. It's who is, and the criteria is who is going to be the primary caregiver of the baby at that time. Because a lot of times they'll say, okay, well, my wife gets 10 weeks or my wife gets 8 weeks, but then she has to go back. And that's when I would like to step in and take advantage of our leave to keep watching the baby before we have to pass them off to a nanny or, have to figure out childcare. And so yeah, it's working.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such an important distinction as like caregiving is something we all do and that every parent often has responsibilities for. And so I think the way you've built all of these programs, being able to give people that flexibility to say it doesn't have to happen immediately after the baby arrives, like you have the flexibility to use this in a way that makes sense for you is really
Mhm.
what everyone is looking for. So that's great.
Yeah, and we're also shifting, it's really shifted this idea when I first started 5.5 years ago, a lot of these male agents would take pride in saying, I only took a couple of days off. Oh, when I was on leave, I took 5 days. And so there's this pride in how quickly you went back to work. And we're trying to move away from that. And so when I am speaking to these, you know, these people going on leave and they're trying to decide if they're going to be primary or secondary, is, telling them things like, you're not going to get this time back, and make sure, you're making the right decision for you. And the stigma is moving away, right? The stigma is going away with like, how quickly can you get back to the office? And they just feel incredibly supported at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is and was a lot more stigma in the past, but also just having like leaders in your organization take leave, tell
Mm-hmm.
people that they're taking leave, put it on their out of office message. Like it just really makes a difference to be
Absolutely.
able to showcase that people are using this and they should be using it
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Let's see. So also had a question around how backup childcare works for UTA. Can you talk a little bit more about that program?
Yeah, so we use Bright Horizons, and I think they're probably the most popular of all the backup child cares. I've used them, I think, in the last three companies. I know there's other really great ones out there. So for us, they were global, and we offer 5 days per employee per year, and then you get 15 days of backup care if you have a child under the age of 1. And I know a lot of these companies do it very similarly. And it's if your nanny calls in sick, or your kids have a day off in school. But I've also found that a lot of parents use it as like, when the baby's first year, and I did this too, as like my primary caregiver for every Friday. So that's what I was doing. So I had a babysitter that came Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays I took them to a daycare center. So it was $25 a day for both my children for the entire day, and I can do it 15 times. So I was able to do that and, take advantage of it that way. And we'll also give extra days to people if they reach out asking for it. But, I think this is an area that can be improved. I think this is another area where people need more support.
Yeah, absolutely. But the childcare piece, I'm sure, is so meaningful. And have you had any feedback from your teams around how that program has worked and what's been the reaction?
I think for backup childcare, we've had pros and cons. And so I think when they request a childcare, they get a little anxious on getting a response back that the care has been reserved. And that's like when it's same day care, when it's like that morning, their nanny called in sick and they need to know right away if we can provide them with a nanny. I think there's some areas and pain points that can improve there. But overall, the the biggest thing I've had is like wanting more days, right? Like 5 days is great, 10, 15 days is great. I need more days of backup childcare.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Um, is that benefit, we just had a question come in around backup care. Is that a paid benefit or is the employee paying a portion of the cost? Is it discounted? Like, what does that cost model look like there?
So it's co-pays. So it's $6 co-pays per hour. The idea is that it's a professional that comes to your house, available to you right away. It's $6 co-pays per hour for 10 days, up to 10 hours a day. That counts as 1 day. Or you could take them to a center-based care, which they partner with a lot of center-based cares, for $15 a day. And if you have more than one kid, it's $25 a day. So you still have to pay into it, unlike a Maven that's completely free and unlimited sessions, or our other benefits where we're just reimbursing. This one, you have to have a copay involved um, for the benefit.
Got it. That makes sense. Awesome. Well, I think we probably have time for just one last question. Let's just see. Would love if you could talk a little bit more about talent acquisition, how you promote your family benefits among candidates that you're looking to recruit. Can you share more there?
Yeah, I mean, our recruiters do it all, and the person that I said last week with the woman, the wife who was an entrepreneur, self-employed, is one of our recruiters, and so it's just nice to. I thought how perfect that he actually works in the department where this has made such a big impact to him. But I train them once a quarter. I go to the recruiting department meeting and I kind of just remind them because we have a lot. We have a lot of benefits, and it's not just family support. So these are all the things we offer, and so that they can speak to it really well. Um, but yeah, I, I know that it's a lot when I'm doing a benefit orientation if one of my teammates can't do it. And if I'm doing the benefit, you hear a lot of wow, that's amazing, or really, are you sure? So there's this disbelief that there's so many things offered in the family support benefit. So that's very helpful. And a lot of it is word of mouth. So, these agents are speaking to each other. And so they already know before they come in what we offer.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's such a good point. So many of your benefits promotions and your communications come from people who use them and have great experiences with them. And that's the power of what your employees can do to really promote these perks and benefits as well. Well, I'm sure we could ask you questions all day about everything that you've built at UTA, but this was such a great conversation. We're so grateful to have all of your amazing insights and so many practical nuggets to take away. So thank you so, so much for joining us, Lucy. This has been really great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great too. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I hope you
such a
guys
great
found it helpful.
conversation. Yeah. And thank you to all of our audience members for joining today. We hope you found this helpful and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.